So self-belief is talked about a hell of a lot when it comes to success principles and a success mindset and so on and so forth. And rightfully so, it is extremely important. However, it's frequently misdiagnosed. If you're thinking about, and this is the more important one, you've already started to pursue a particular venture, a particular project, a goal, whatever you want to call it, you've already assessed the ability that's needed and concluded that you have it. Typically, where this happens the most is actually when you've embarked on a certain pursuit, a certain goal, you've gone so far into the journey and you're ready to take it to the next level. That's where this misdiagnosis typically happens, because something is stopping you and you're not 100% sure what it is. You know that there's a certain lack of faith, there's a certain lack of confidence, and you kind of slap the lack of self-belief label on it because what else can it possibly be? It's frustrating as hell. If you've ever watched those who have already made it to where you want to go, and you look at those people and you look at what they're doing, and you think, I can do that. I know I can do that. What's more, and this is even worse, is if you've looked at it and gone, I can do that better than they're doing that right now. This is what I'm talking about right now. When you get to that point and that frustration is building, but you can't seem to get from here up and over that hurdle into the next bit. This is where you need to make sure that you're addressing the right problem. And self-belief isn't it. Because you know you can do it. Ironically, it's actually the fact that you're loaded with self-belief. That is your problem. You see, the minute you conclude that you are very capable of achieving something, the stakes go up. And there's two reasons for that. First of all, once you've embarked down that path, people know you've embarked down it. So now all of a sudden, you've got to be mindful of how you're coming across to others. We're social creatures. You can't help but be concerned about that to a certain extent. So that's the first problem. The second problem with this is whatever we're best at, that's what we root all of our pride and sense of self-worth and sense of identity into. We are what we're best at. That's huge. Now all of a sudden, you don't just need to worry about not getting the pot of gold at the end of the journey. You've got to worry as well about losing your pride, losing the one thing that you have built your sense of self-worth and self-esteem on. That's a much higher risk. So with a lack of self-belief, you fear that you are not good enough. You fear that you don't have the capability, others are better than you, and so on and so forth. Now, this feels very similar, I'm certain, because it is still fear that you're feeling, but it's not fear in terms of your ability, because you know you can do it. What you're actually afraid of is not being able to prove it. There are two solutions to this issue. The first one is you need to get your definition of failure right. Just because you trip and stumble somewhere along the way does not mean you failed. There are numerous multi-millionaires, billionaires even, who have been broke at some point during their journey. It does not mean you failed. It means you haven't finished. That's all it means. You just haven't finished yet. The funny thing is that, because here's the problem, you can quite easily in your own head get to understand that and say, no, okay, I've only failed when I've quit. If I haven't quit, I haven't finished. Ergo, I haven't failed. So that's quite easy to do from an individual point of view. The difficulty is, but what do others think? If you've got people around you who perhaps were naysayers from the beginning, maybe they were advising you not to go into this, maybe they were saying, just stick to your day job, just don't. It's them that we actually find ourselves getting more worried about. But first of all, most of the people that we're worried about judging us aren't even looking. They're not even looking at us. They don't care. They don't give a toss. There is a psychological phenomenon where we magnify our level of importance in the lives of other people. They don't care. They are so worried and caught up in their own problems, their own issues, their own goals and pursuits. They're barely looking at yours. So most of them you don't even need to worry about. The ones who are closer to home and perhaps have a vested interest in whatever it is that you're doing, Some of them are genuinely concerned for your well-being. Some. Where most people are concerned, the general rule of thumb is the harder other people try to do you down, the more likely it is it's not even about you. It's about their issues. They're being driven by the need to make themselves feel better about something. It's their own problems, it's their own issues that are driving them. So you got to learn to just block those people out. Their opinion doesn't matter to you. It is that simple. You are the only person who gets to judge when and if you failed. You. That's it. Nobody else. Be smart about it. If you're not learning from your mistakes as you go along, then you probably will fail at the end of the day. But you know your capabilities. You know what you can do. You've looked at that goal, you've looked at others who've done it, you've assessed it, and you know in your heart and soul you can do it. So don't lose sight of that belief. The only other thing that you have to do is have faith that your ability will be enough to get you there. It'll be enough. Just have faith that if you go through the right motions, you continue to learn and grow, you approach this with a growth mindset. If you do all of those things right and you practice, you don't get cocky, you don't get arrogant just because you're good at it and you know you're good at it and blah, blah, blah. Don't be afraid to fail. Learn every lesson and continue to develop and evolve and grow, and then just have faith that you can overcome any barriers and obstacles that come along the way. Because that's your second fear, is that something like a crash in the economy, a credit crunch, or a global pandemic is going to come along and trip you up. It's going to stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. Because even though people know that those things happen and they do have an impact on people's goals, of course they do, but there will always be that little doubt where they'll look at it and say, or is it just because they never really had it in them in the first place? That's our biggest concern. It's that people will look at us and they'll never really know for sure why you failed. Maybe you just weren't good enough in the first place. That is the ultimate fear. Because the pride, you can't afford to lose that pride, that you've rooted your whole sense of self-esteem into that. You can't afford to lose it. So that is the ultimate fear. The trick is to remind yourself, ideally on a daily basis, of why you fancied your chances in the first place. Why did you get into this? Write down everything that is actually working in your favor right now. Our minds will naturally drift. Scientifically proven, they will naturally focus in on all of the risks and the threats and the reasons why something may not work. That's our default wiring. If you want to maintain a strong mindset as you approach a goal and to overcome and lift yourself to that next level, get it written down. What's working in your favor? What are all the reasons why this could succeed, why you could succeed? Get those written down and work hard at keeping them in your head, because they won't stay there naturally, and that's when you start to get confused as to whether or not you can make it or not. Remind yourself of those strengths and those reasons as often as you possibly can, and then just have faith that the ability that you know you have will be enough to get you to where you want to be.